Well, welcome to the BPD Bunch Brunch, where we get together with our favorite brunchy beverages to catch up, play games, and talk about all things BPD. I'm your host, Xannie, and today I'm here with Katja, Melanie, and Hak Ja. Where in the world is everyone coming from, and what is your brunchy beverage for the day?
So I am joining from West Midlands, United Kingdom, and today I have Sally with me, and I think Jack is around somewhere, but I have good old British breakfast tea.
I love it. Your mugs are amazing.
I know, I have quite a collection now.
I am drinking good old water, and I'm coming from Toronto, Canada.
I'm drinking some orange juice and Olipop, and I'm coming from New Jersey, United States.
I am coming from New Mexico in the United States, and I do have water in my BPD Bunch cup, but I also have my giant feast mode. I have a whole pot of tea in here.
It's so big. I love it.
Since on our show we mostly talk about how we got from being really symptomatic to living in varying degrees of functional recovery, I think it's important every now and again to catch up and see what is life in functional recovery like. What are some of the things that we're going through now and improving on, because the journey of growth never really ends as long as we're alive. So let's just dive right in. How are the things? What are your current ups, downs, lessons?
Hak Ja, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I've realized that grad school is a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be, but not because of the coursework, just like dealing with my professors and like all the ego that they have about, what they think is right as a counselor and what theories they do and don't agree with. The professor I had this past week was saying that after a session, like, clients should be like, upset, uncomfortable, frustrated, like if they're always coming out like happy that you were an ineffective counselor and that you were doing something wrong. I understand where he was coming from, in terms of like, therapy is uncomfortable a lot of the time, but I don't think that means that you have to leave dysregulated and in tears every session. I don't think that that's necessary. I did ask him a question like, how do we, deal with this like long term in our lives? Because the idea is who you are as a therapist and who you are as a person should be the same, right? So I've been having a hard time like understanding that. And he just said, you're going to be a punching bag for the rest of your life, and clients should not leave happy after a session. Right after he said all of that, he was like, okay, let's take a break. And I went to the bathroom with my friend, and I was just kind of like ranting because I felt like a lot of what he was saying about how things should be was just wrong. And I was just saying like how I don't think that I want to be the type of therapist who leaves clients like, upset and frustrated and angry at me. Like, why would I want them to be angry at me? The whole reason, that a lot of therapy works is because of the relationship you have with your therapist. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to ruin that for anybody. I don't want to make them regret coming to therapy or something like that. And I was just ranting, and out comes from one of the stalls, the teacher assistant for that class. And I literally dropped to the floor because I was so embarrassed because, I just assume that she agrees with whatever he says. But she comes and she talks to us and she's like, no, it's good that you're like asking these questions. It's good that you're forming your own opinions. And she didn't say anything wrong, but for some reason it struck something like a chord in me because I haven't heard, like, I guess a professor kind of person like say anything like that to me. And I felt it. I like, when you feel like your chest getting tight and you're like, oh no, it's coming, like I'm gonna cry. But I was like, I need to push through and go to class, but it kept getting worse and I had a whole breakdown and I started crying, and some of my classmates came out to try to see if I was okay. It was so embarrassing, but I think that in itself was a good thing because I really struggle with letting people see me cry and having any kind of emotional expression in public. So I was happy I could cry. I was happy I could, experience what I was actually feeling and not just be like numbed out.
Yeah, that ability to cry is, or like have a feeling and not be like, oh, this is a BPD moment, I have to hide. That's like, no, I'm just I'm a person right now. I'm having a human moment. It's okay.
Especially when you have BPD, because it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like sometimes personally responsible for like
How everyone
how
views
the
BPD?
BPD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole shame around that, right? So you're asking yourself there, you're like, am I allowed to feel this? And you did. You allowed yourself to feel this.
Like, I really was thinking, like, okay, like, I could go outside and try to, like, calm myself down, but then I was like, no, like, I need to cry. So I'm gonna cry. I don't care anymore.
So how are things going for you, Melanie?
So I reached a point of complete and utter burnout last month where I had a complete breakdown. I was like lying on the floor where I had a message from my supervisor, my teachers, my therapist, my husband, and the word was just like in big bold, too much. And I just was giving and giving and giving. And so I was like, you're burnt out. You are so burnt out. And so I realized I reached a point of burnout. And the thing with me is I have unrelenting standards for myself. And I don't know who set them, but they just continued. And I have an addiction to working. Like I have an absolute addiction to working. So I don't enjoy joy. Like, so when I'm supposed to be enjoying something, I'm thinking about working. I'm thinking about the next thing. So I made this joke with my therapist this week. It's like, we're all trying to leave legacies, but we're already dead. So if anybody knows what that means, it's like you're already dead if you're trying to leave something behind. I mean, like, what's the point of even trying to leave something behind if you're not enjoying the process of life? So I got to the point where I realized I needed to make a new system for myself. I finally booked myself a week retreat, November 1st. And it's the first time where I was so excited. You know, they say, how do you build hope? Something to look forward to. But I found a place in Arizona, and I love like Arizona and Utah and stuff. And the place is called Spirit Quest. I kid you not, it's like so Mel, like leave this Spirit Quest. But I know. And Steve, my husband's coming, and the last day is going to be like a day for us there, but 6 days, very intense cleansing, not just like massages. This is like I'm doing some deep work. I already do deep work. If people know me, you get to know me. I love the deep work. I love the inner child, the deep wounds, anxiety, depression, all that. Give it to me. But this is like 6 days of wellness, burnout, like cleansing. And I'm doing like my like sacral massages, everything. So that's in the works. I've been doing reprogramming, new cleansing of my system. And then so how am I doing today? I'm very hopeful. You know what I mean? I'm hopeful, which is why I'm smiling, because I basically took a leave of absence, like from all my clients, starting at 2 new clinics when I come back, and then some new surprises in the new year, and a lot, again, workaholic, but at least with the intention of learning to mitigate the burnout, mitigate the work, and then reset, like a new reset. But I want to hear, because Katja, I want to hear how like bring it back to you, like what are your thoughts of life and what's going on? How does that go for you?
So it's a little bit of a weird one, but when Hak Ja was talking about expressing emotion and not being able to do that, and especially not being able to do it in public, it kind of got me thinking to the fact that I am trying to get more in touch with my emotions, because emotions for me are quite complex in the sense that because I have the additional personality disorder, I do experience a select few very extreme emotions, but they are not externalized. And I've realized that actually I have these extreme emotions, and not being able to externalize them is becoming really problematic for me, because with the flat affect, people often don't know how I'm feeling, and one of the biggest ones for me is actually anger. So I always internalize anger, like it is an extreme emotion for me, and I will experience a lot of physical symptoms. So you know yourself, like when you're angry, your heart races, you start sweating, you know, like you can actually sometimes see the red mist, but none of that will ever be externalized for me. And I actually had a situation in the last week where I thought, I'm always avoiding confrontation, I don't express anger, like maybe it's time that I actually try and get that out, because internalizing it is not doing me any favors. And I actually had a situation a few days ago where I was walking down the street, minding my own business, and a guy rides past me on a bicycle and decides to say something completely unsolicited to me as he rode past. And old Katja would have been like, oh, it's fine, you know, just let it go, it's not important. And I was like, no, I'm not having that. So I actually embarrassingly chased this guy down to the traffic lights where he was waiting to cross the road, because I was in my gym stuff and I was like, you know what? I've got trainers on, I'm just going to run. So I actually caught up with this guy and I was like, you know what? Like, you just said something completely inappropriate to me as you went past, and I really need to know why you felt the need to do that. And this guy just blew up on me, like shouting, swearing, really confrontational, really angry. And I was just completely composed through the whole thing. And yeah, I did use a word that maybe I shouldn't have used, that was quite rude. But, you know, I was just in the face of this absolute tirade from this person, and I'd done nothing wrong. All I'd done is question why he felt the need to try and make somebody else feel inferior to him when I was completely minding my own business. And I was really proud of myself, because after that altercation, he like rode off, like verbally abusing me down the road, and I didn't respond to it. And I thought, actually, I've been so scared of expressing anger for so long. And I have expressed anger in a mostly appropriate way. And the world didn't end. Like, I didn't absolutely lose it. I didn't cause a big scene. You know, the world didn't end because I was angry. And I was like, oh my God, I can actually be angry. So that was like a revelation.
No, but that's a really good example. And I think it's not, we don't term this, but a lot of people they call themselves like quiet, on the quiet side, BPD. And a lot of people are like, I feel like a nuzzle. I just want to break out and scream right now. But that's a really beautiful example. And at the end, I was just like, how did you feel? And you said, well, I'm proud of myself. Right. And there's almost this like residue of wanting to say something, but we don't. And then we stuff it down so far.
I don't know why I'm thinking about this. But Katja once was talking about how somebody ate all of her vegan sausage rolls, and that she got very angry. And did you externally express that or no?
No, I think I like stomped around and like made a big scene without saying anything, and everyone's like, what is your problem? I'm like, nothing. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, because I didn't externalize it. But also I think at the same time I was sort of aware that it was a really stupid thing to be annoyed about, really. I mean, I could have just got some more, like... So I think I was aware that I was a bit irrational, but I do find that when I do speak up and when I do confront people, you know, it's usually over something that I feel I can't let go. And I do feel like I can let most things go because we've had the conversation before, I don't really care about a lot. So for me to care about something, if I confront someone over it, it's because it's something that matters to me or is close to my heart. And I think with that particular situation, I'm not really in any rush to do it again and confront anyone, but I do feel like there was a line that was crossed in that particular situation. And I think from his reaction and the fact that he blew up so quickly and became so abusive towards me makes me think, actually, you know you were in the wrong. Mm-hmm. It's indefensible. Why would you say something to somebody who has got nothing to do with you, is not on your radar in any way? You just felt like being a knob.
Yeah, no, I think I totally relate. I don't know if I ever really thought about it, but I definitely have that quiet BPD kind of like subtype. So it's really cool to hear you guys like say all this stuff, because I'm like, I think this is kind of like the answer that I needed in class. Like what to do, when to put your boundaries up, like when to not be a punching bag for people. Like, so that's really cool. You know, like I would have thought about chasing down this guy in this situation, but I probably would have not done it. Like, you know, and it's really cool that you did. You're like a superhero.
Yeah, I still think I would have probably handled it a little bit differently. Like, probably wouldn't have used the word that I used. Although, in the face of all the abuse that I was facing in return, I suppose, like, one bad word was, like, quite restrained. He actually said it to me first, and I said it back, and then he shouted at me for being disrespectful. It's like, pardon. Yeah, it was such an odd exchange. Such an odd exchange.
I think between your professor and that guy biking and me having lying on the floor a month ago as a qualifying psychotherapist is like, you're allowed to have a bad day. We're all human, like, right? And so like you're laughing about this guy biking. Who says you can't be that person biking one day, having a bad day? We're all having bad days, bad moments. We're humans, right? And that's the thing. Healing is not linear. You hear it all the time, but people like really don't let that sink in properly. They beat themselves up over and over again. I'm not where I should be. I'm not where I was. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Hello, what does that even mean?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, because just this Tuesday I was crying in my session with my therapist because I had this realization that I still carry this belief that if I just work, like if I can just figure out the right way to think about something, then I will be able to avoid feeling pain about it. Like maybe if I try hard enough, I'll get to the point where, like, when my cat dies, for example, I won't be sad. I'll be able to be like, I recognize that this happened and I'm moving on, right? Like, as if there is a way to just turn off my emotions if I try hard enough. And I think it was frustrating to realize that there's a part of me that still thinks that, because I think I'm so accepting of my own emotions.
And that's exhausting.
Yeah.
To not be able to turn off thinking that you can think. There's a way of applying that type of thinking to all thinking.
Yeah, it's not like I think it consciously, right? But sometimes the way that I judge my reactions to things, or like, you know, I'm like, I'm not ready for this. Like, well, what does it mean to be ready? My therapist asked me, like, what would that mean if you were ready for loss, for example? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't feel pain. And she's like, that is not a realist, like, that's not a thing. Nobody has, like, what? No, that's not a thing that people experience. It's not like just because somebody goes to work after experiencing a loss and they're able to function through their day doesn't mean that they're not in pain, right? But I have a really hard, as somebody who's has been very externalized, I have a hard time understanding that concept.
So what you're saying sounds similar to what I deal with on the level of unrelenting and very perfectionist. And I always say this sentence out loud. I write it out in bold. I go, when's it enough? So it's progress over perfection. So when's it enough? Nobody can give you that answer. You have to decide it's enough, and it slowly starts to release.
Well, I think that's part of the journey, is like, and I think this is what's so difficult about being a human being, is that, like, that the finding that dialectic between acceptance and change, that, like, accepting where you are in any given moment and always striving to do better, like, that is very difficult sometimes. Like, we hear the words, we understand the words, but to really understand and internalize that, I think my brain in any given moment is doing acceptance or change.
Ooh,
being
that's
able
good.
and really working on the and really doing both, like, that is not easy. It's easy to understand the sentence and understand what, like, linguistically what that means, but actually practically understanding that is a lot of work. And that's something I'm still working on, even though I don't technically qualify for, like, no one would diagnose me for BPD based on my life today, but there are a lot of, like, residual wounds that are still kind of fully healing and moving forwards, and that perfectionism is one of them. The like, oh, someday I'll be a perfect robot person. And it's difficult because I've talked about this since season 1. Like, this is something that is, that it's hard.
What you just said was so amazing. Like but like it's either or, black or white. It's like, I'm stuck here, but where's that and? I can't get in there. Let me get in that middle. Like, just let me sit in there and be comfortable. But really beautiful point you just made. I'm right there with you. So I'm going, ow, it hurts. So, yeah.
When you were saying, like, when is it enough? That was literally when I was in inpatient, like, they told us to think of like a word or a phrase, like when we were being like mindful and like meditating, I guess. And that was like my phrase, like, that's enough. That's been the only time where I really started to see progress, like, at all with like these such like overwhelming emotions, was when you can like create that limit for yourself and be like, I don't deserve to cry more than this. I don't deserve to hurt more than this. I don't deserve anything more than that. And I think that's why like the radical acceptance thing is also so important too, right? Like, these emotions, like, they're not bad or good, like, I think the most helpful thing that my therapist said to me like over the summer, because I was so like just honestly depressed and I didn't know why, but she was like, you know what, like, that's okay. Like, I think there's a point that you have to come to that you just accept that you are depressed and you're going through it and it makes sense. And then after that, like, it was like a veil lifted and this weight came off my shoulders and I was like, okay, like, actually I'm okay with being depressed. Like, that's just the feeling for now, but it's something that'll pass and it's not forever. And I just hate the feeling of like, I don't know, like, just identifying with our emotions all the time and being so like, I'm sad, so I'm just a sad person. I'm depressed, I'm just depressed. I'm an angry person, like, all those kinds of things. And just being able to say it's temporary and not forever. So that's also been really hard, but it's really good for me, at least.
I always find it's a lot lighter once, like you're talking about the acceptance, once it's accepted. It's that fighting, it's like that resisting that makes it so much more challenging. It's that I'm fighting, I have to be on that couch today. I'm fighting these feelings today. I'm fighting this hour. I'm fighting that moment. So I thought it was a really beautiful moment, even visually thinking about you saying, I'm accepting this weight is here and it's starting to release and it's starting to come off my body almost. People sometimes say to me, I don't know how to describe it. I go, you don't have to describe it. Sometimes it's just about accepting it. And then it's about releasing it. And for me, a lot of the times with my emptiness and my depression, it was just about accepting it and then allowing it to move through.
That's the hardest thing about like wanting to recover and wanting to like not have BPD anymore, is like, you don't want to feel these feelings. You don't want to give in to any of these reactions or emotions, but like we have to learn that, or just, I guess, remind yourselves or remind myself, right, all the time that these are normal emotions, just on a different scale. Like, we can express these emotions. It's okay. Like, we don't have to be these perfect whatever people. Maybe we are the guy on the bike sometimes. Maybe we are like an angry professor with an ego. I mean,
I think sometimes our expectations of what recovery is supposed to be is like beyond what a human being is. Like, especially for me, my expectation of recovery, and I'm still trying to let that go. Like that, like letting go of that expectation that I'm going to be some perfect robot person is difficult because it's not a conscious thought. It's like a pre-verbal thought. Mm-hmm. And so it's not until I see it playing out in how I treat myself that I'm like, there's this thing under the surface, right? But like, the professor, the guy on the bike, those are people both acting maybe not the most effective that they could in that moment. And like, just having a moment is not indicative of like a huge personal failing or a character flaw.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone so much for watching. We hope you got a nugget of fun and wisdom to take with you on your journey. This upcoming Wednesday, we will be back with a brand new discussion topic. If you cannot wait until then, we do have an extended cut of it available for our top 2 tiers on Patreon right now. You can check out the link in the description for more information about that. And we will see you next time. Bye.